Welcome to Blockhunters, the Bitcoin board game. My name is Guy Swann, and today I will be your game master. Your mission, as it is in the real world, is to acquire as much Bitcoin as you can and become the Lord of the Citadel. An honor bestowed upon you for your wit, your memory, your OPSEC, and a little bit of luck. So let's dig into all of the components. First up, we have 10 private keys. These are the larger, sturdier cards in the box. Each player will have one or multiple of these, and these will determine how many Bitcoins that they own. Next, we have 70 transaction cards. On one side, there will be a character, and on the reverse side, there will be a number. Note that 10 of these cards are special. They look different, they're shiny, and they should be shuffled in with all of the regular transaction cards. The game also includes 21 power cards, which we'll learn more about later. A velvet bag, which contains 37 nonces and 46 Bitcoins. Now that you're familiar with all of the components and the cards are shuffled, it's time to set up the board. You'll see an area designated the mempool with 9 spaces. Draw 9 random transaction cards and place them in the mempool with the characters and their names facing up, just for now. Place the remaining stack of power cards, private keys, and transaction cards where indicated on the board. Don't forget to refer to the white paper for how many players you have. The number of cards and Bitcoins you receive at the beginning will depend on this. For our example, we have 4 players, so each player will draw a private key. It's important to not show this to anyone else. Only if you can keep this identity secret will you have any Bitcoin at the end of the game. Next, each player will draw 3 transaction cards. Again, you can look at your own cards, but don't show them to anyone else. And when you're ready, turn all of the cards in the mempool face down, so everyone can only see the number. The goal of each turn is to create transactions that will eventually get Bitcoin back to your private key. And that's whether you've uncovered someone else's private key and suspect you can steal it from them, or creating transactions that send Bitcoins to your private key. But in the mempool, they are only pending transactions. Only the player who mines the closest nonce is going to get to decide which transactions go in their block. Every turn will create exactly 1 block with 4 transactions selected by the winning miner. The trick is, all of the transaction cards will remain facing down after they are initially placed into the mempool. Not only do you want to remember where your character is in the mempool, but you also want to know which of the characters your opponents have chosen to include in their blocks, because you'll get an opportunity to guess which one is theirs and potentially take all of their Bitcoins. Let's play a quick round of the game so that we can see. Again, we will use the example of 4 players, and we are the bottom left player. We've drawn our cards, and we have the private key Tolu. This is where everyone has a chance to study the mempool with the characters facing up. After all of the players indicate they are ready, the cards will be turned over and you will have to rely on memory. Each player has Bitcoins to allocate for their turn. With yours, place as many Bitcoins on any transaction cards in the mempool as you want, if you want. And remember, you want as much Bitcoin as possible sent to your private key, but you don't want to give away which one it is, and your opponents will be watching your transactions. Tolu wasn't in the mempool this round, so we won't place any Bitcoins, but we will watch what all of the other players are doing. When this is complete and all the transactions are ready, it's time to mine the block. First, take the sum of all the transactions in the previous block. Since this is block number 1, Satoshi already filled the Genesis block for us, so our target number to start the game is 21. All players will draw 3 nonces or random numbers without looking from the velvet bag. Now every player looks at their nonces to see which is closest to the target number, in this case 21, and below the target is preferred over being higher. Everyone reveals their best nonce at the same time, and we happen to win the first round. Lucky us, we get to make the first block. All of the losing nonces go back in the bag, while ours makes the center of block number 1. We have won the ability to choose which 4 transactions in the mempool to fill our block with. One of your opponents placed 2 Bitcoins on 2 different cards that, if you remember correctly, were both for private key Maria. Is this their private key, or are they trying to throw you off? If you choose to mine those transactions, then anyone who has the private key Maria, or can guess who does, could get those coins later if they mine a block and correctly guess it. So we pick our transactions and we finalize our block. And as the block winner, we get the Bitcoin reward to allocate Bitcoins to transactions in the next rounds. You'll find on the board the list of rewards for each block as the game progresses. Back at the start of the round and each round throughout the game, each player will draw a new transaction card face down from the top of the stack to add to their hand. Then each player picks 1 card from their hand to add to the empty spaces in the mempool. You don't have to add to the mempool in any particular order, so there's no need to wait. In an effort to get some Bitcoin, we are going to add Tolu. We place the card on the board and say, "I've received a transaction from Tolu." These 4 cards will be face up until everyone is ready, and they will be turned back over so that only the numbers can be seen. So let's go ahead and play the second round. This time we do have a transaction that will send Bitcoin to Tolu. So we'll put some coins on that card, but maybe some of the others too, hopefully to misdirect our opponents and not give our private keys away. After everyone has placed their coins in the mempool, we'll calculate the sum of the transaction cards in the previous block. This is 16. Now it's time to mine. Again, all players draw 3 nonces from the bag. The new target is 16. Everyone reveals their closest nonce. And again, the player who is closest gets to make the block, adding whichever transaction cards and the Bitcoin on them from the mempool into their block, and then collecting the reward for new Bitcoin as indicated on the board. Then each player will draw a new transaction card from the stack to replenish the one they used. And again, choosing one to add to the mempool, which you announce to the other players before flipping it over. This cycle will occur for all 9 blocks until the end of the game. Now, some blocks will have slightly different rewards. For instance, on block 3, all players will draw a second private key. On block 6, the winner of the block will draw another private key. And on blocks 8 and 9, whoever mines the block will get to guess the key of another player to steal their coins. If they are correct, the victim hands the private key to the thief. Now the special transaction cards. When these get placed in the mempool, the person who played it will draw a power card from the stack. Most of the power cards are good, some are neutral, but some are bad. So be careful if you use them. Everything is a trade-off. Refer to the rulebook for any questions and be sure to read the details of your power card aloud to everyone. After all 9 blocks are mined, the keys are revealed and all the cards are flipped over, and the Bitcoins are distributed to whoever holds the private key. And whoever has the most Bitcoins is the winner. And in the spirit of Bitcoin, any of the rules of this game can be modified, as long as there is consensus. At least 51% of the players must agree to the new rule. We hope you love the game, stack all the Bitcoin that you can, and happy hunting.